boomers left us to suffer at the hands of the silent generation.
I can't say enough how much.
Baby, here's the tea on this. So, let's just talk about laws and what was socially acceptable with those particular generations. So, you got the silent generation, 1928 to 1945. Domestic discipline and unaliving your wife wasn't even legally recognized to 1920. But wait, there's more. It didn't become socially unacceptable to after 1960. So the complaints would come in, police would see it as frivolous, move on with their day. Oh, Leroy beats his wife. Hey, he be drinking too much. I try to tell him. It was extremely normalized. And then you got the boomers that come in from 1946 to 1964. Now again, it was still socially acceptable to DV your wife. Now, why am I focusing in on the wife? Because the wife in a traditional times was in charge of the children. They were in charge of the children. The husband was in charge of the money, the finance, bringing home the bread, external things outside of the household. The mother, though, was in charge of internal things in the household, unless her man or husband or whatever you want to call it outruled her. He was the final say-so. He was the judge and the jury, right? So the children and their suffering was only a proponent of the mother's suffering. See, as long as the woman suffers, the children will suffer. This is a fact, okay? As long as the women suffer, the children will suffer, period. Now, if it's socially acceptable for them to suffer, if they don't see it as any kind of violation, and you don't have law enforcement behind you actually enforcing those laws, well then, you got a problem. And me and my friends, we kind of make fun of this, but we say the boomers was the type of generation where you say, Mommy, it's a body. It's an unalive body out there on the porch. You know what mama do? Turn around, look at the child, look at the TV, and turn it up loud. She watching the Ed Sullivan show. Child, shut up and mind your business. And Generation X, the X stand for excuses, honey. All they knew how to do is to make excuses for aberrant, destructive, demonstrative behaviors. See, when the millennials, early millennials, like the Xennials, came into the picture, we started to sound the alarm of the effects of these unhealthy parentships and relationships that we have been indoctrined, witnessing, and imposed on us. And they called us whiny, okay? They called us entitled. They called us spoiled because they were in hell, okay? They had to live through hell, and we pretty much had to suffer a little bit according to them. And suffering was just a natural part of life. And you know who was on the other end telling folks that suffering was a natural part of life? The church. Now some of y'all gonna say, why you bringing my God into this? Why you bringing my God into this? I ain't talking about your God yet. I'm talking about the church. And the church all but advocated for suffering as some form or way of nobility. So ultimately, the person who was able to endure more suffering was the individual who was, I guess, more appointed and more approved of by God. That's how they taught religion, especially Christianity. And the God of the Bible, let's not get started on him, okay? Always, all of the disciples and the characters in the Bible had to prove their value through suffering. Okay? So, ultimately, there wasn't even a culture of understanding abuse. The conversation is fairly new, not even really 10 years old. So, leaving us to the devices of the other generations, like the silent, the boomers, and a little bit of the Xers, wasn't really a thing, honey. It was actually natural to them, commonplace, and they were indoctrinated to believe so.